I can honestly say that after looking at everything that I saw and listening to the podcast, going back to the situation and looking at it, that we I was supposed to start this series a couple days ago, but I got sick, and now we're finally here to talk about Ben Simmons, something I didn't think I'd be doing for a while. Those of you that don't know, J.J Redick has a podcast called The Old Man and the Three. Quick little history lesson, it was started during the pandemic, and I believe it was actually inside the NBA bubble when he started recording episodes. I've been paying attention to the podcast for the past couple years, and honestly I can say I enjoy just about every episode. But I won't lie, when I saw Ben Simmons was gonna be on The Old Man and the Three, I knew I had to tune in because I knew some things were going to be dropped that I wanted to talk about. But all I can say is after watching that podcast, I can honestly say that we owe Ben Simmons an apology. Now, I'm not just going to blame everyone else because I was a part of the problem, but if a lot of you guys were paying attention to my channel when it started out, I made like probably 5 to 10 Ben Simmons videos during the summer. It was actually probably more if I'm being honest, because one, I constantly wanted to daily upload, which I think did get me in the position I'm in right now. But number two, it was the biggest topic to talk about during free agency last year. The whole conversation was, where was Ben Simmons going to be getting traded? Would it be the Warriors, the Kings, the Pacers for some reason? However, after the end of the offseason, nothing happened and he would remain on the 76ers. Now we obviously all know that Ben Simmons would eventually get traded to the Brooklyn Nets, which even though I've talked a lot of shit about the Nets, I can say that I think Ben Simmons is going to perform very well. Now, a lot of you probably saw the title and said, oh, you're being soft about Ben Simmons and I can't believe you're taking back everything you said. And I could honestly say that after looking at everything that I saw and listening to the podcast, going back to the situation and looking at it, that we didn't know everything. See, the thing about being an NBA fan and being a YouTuber is that our connections are very, very low. I mean, it's not like I have some front office member from the Nets just texting me about Ben Simmons and his daily habits. The fact of the matter is that everything we're hearing is from either A, the media, or B, these players whenever they choose to speak. And I'll give props to Ben Simmons. The amount of backlash this man had and that he continued to really not say anything is very impressive. And this wasn't just some dumb NBA fan on his couch. A lot of former players were coming after him and a lot of media members. Now let's not dodge the question, why am I retracting everything I said and am I feeling more empathy for Ben Simmons than I was previously? Well, to every story there are two sides, and we only saw the public side, which was Ben Simmons refusing to suit up for the Nets, and also him refusing to play for the 76ers, and even that practice he got kicked out of, which I want to talk about. Now, like I said, we didn't really hear about Ben Simmons' side the whole entire time this was going on, and that's why I was very interested when I heard this podcast would be coming out. Now, let's actually dissect some of the clips from the podcast and kind of talk about them. The first one I want to talk about is, well, let's go back to the Doc Rivers kicking Ben Simmons out of practice, which, by the way, if you know about Doc Rivers, you know. Guys, please watch what you like on Twitter, okay? People can see that shit. Now again, with that practice, all we saw was Ben Simmons looking very lazy and just looked like he didn't want to be there, and we saw his phone in his pocket and he just, again, wasn't doing anything. But here is the story from Ben Simmons' side.
My understanding is there was a trade request at some point before training camp.
Yeah.
You weren't going to come, then you ended up coming and you went a couple of days of practice, and then one day Doc kicked you out.
Yeah.
And you were texting, probably some girl.
No. Hold on. So
I might have made that last part up.
So people made that up too. I had my jersey in my pocket, in my sweatpant pocket. So they thought it was a phone. I don't know how they thought it was a phone, but that's what that situation was. To clear that up.
Okay. So why did you?
Because I was trying to do the right thing, at least, like do right by, whatever the fuck the team, my teammates, whatever, whoever it is, but trying to do the right thing, and I just was not in that place to play. Like I wasn't. Like I just couldn't do it. And I, getting kicked out of that practice that day, I actually spoke to Doc before practice. I was like, Doc, I'm not ready. Okay, mentally, I'm not ready. Please just understand that. I tried to let him know prior. And he's like, well, I'm gonna put you in anyway. I'm like, all right. Told me to get in. I was like, looked at him like, it was like 1 minute into practice. Like, man, get in. I'm like, first of all, no one's doing that. You're doing this on purpose. And that's how I felt too. I was like, okay, so it seems like everyone's just trying to fuck me now. Like I'm getting fined for like not lifting weights, but physically, I'm like one of the strongest guys on the fucking team.
As soon as I saw this, I did a little bit of research and I found the video of Ben Simmons having a phone or jersey in his pocket, and now that I look at it, that honestly looks like a tag of a jersey. Also, he did tell Doc Rivers not to put him in, which, I mean, I will say if you're going to practice, I would at least be expected, you know, to go in. Either way though, I still think there was no purpose for Ben Simmons to go to practice. That was probably the most awkward practice that I've ever seen. I mean, it looked like everyone and their mom wanted nothing to do with him. And it was public knowledge before that practice he did put in a trade request. It wasn't like a John Wall Rocket situation where he was in good terms with the franchise and they wanted to do him right. No, the franchise was doing him wrong. Now, when Ben Simmons' mental health was put into question, I did say before every video that I seriously hope he was not lying, and I actually did start to take his side on a lot of things because of it. I'm not going to tell you that I had a whole entire city and some of my biggest idols that I looked up to hating on me, but I've definitely had my fair share of mental health problems, and it's not exactly something you just take lightly. Before we talk about when he went to Brooklyn and the whole injuries and him not playing, let's talk about the Hawks series. I'm now realizing the timeline is off, but just bear with me. I'm only going to talk about this for like a minute. First of all, I've been saying this for months, but when Ben Simmons passed up on that dunk on Trae Young, that was not the deciding factor of that game. Let me just be very clear. 76ers were struggling in Game 6 and Game 7, and it seemed like the whole series they could really never get it together. Joel Embiid played like ass in the last 2 games, and it seemed like no one was really doing that good. That missed dunk, sure, maybe for momentum, but if we actually look at the game, the Hawks were probably more than likely going to win that game regardless. But here's the perspective of that dunk from Ben Simmons.
And we talked about that play. And, you know, I'd love to just hear sort of your breakdown of what happened on that play.
In the moment, I just spun, and I'm assuming Trae's going to come over quicker. So I'm thinking he's going to come full blown, and I see Matisse going down. You know, Matisse is athletic and get up. So I'm thinking, okay, quick pass, he's going to flush it, not knowing how much space there was. It happened so quick that you just make a read. And in the playoffs, you need to make the right decisions majority of the time.
Honestly, he's right. In a playoff game, you have to be perfect with every read and every decision you make, and it's all happening so fast. But since we're here, I might as well do a play breakdown of, I guess, the entire play. On this play, Ben Simmons spins off Danilo Gallinari, and right here we see Trae Young on Ben Simmons. Stopping the play right here, we see Ben Simmons is making the pass to Matisse Thybulle because he sees a black jersey under him. Now, Trae Young is a good 6 foot, and Ben Simmons is about 6'10". Now, in any situation, yes, Ben Simmons would make that dunk. However, 1, he's right underneath the basket, at least from this angle. And number 2, all you see is a black jersey underneath you, and you're not thinking it's Trae Young. If that was literally any other player, you would pass that to Matisse Thybulle, who is wide open and who is very quick and athletic. Now, of course, hindsight is 20/20, as John Collins would foul Matisse Thybulle, and he would actually go 1 of 2 from the free throw line. Obviously, that dunk and time the game would be very big, but honestly, I still had Atlanta winning that game. Of course, we could do a what if Ben Simmons didn't pass up that dunk, but honestly, I don't know how different the result would be. I don't think Ben Simmons was not confident enough to dunk over Trae Young, who's like 5'2". Hell, I'm not even 6'10". If I was underneath Trae Young and I could dunk, I would take that opportunity. But then again, you turn around, you see a black jersey, and you see Matisse Thybulle running full steam ahead. Obviously, you're gonna want to pass it to Matisse. And in the position John Collins was in, I did not think he was going to be able to foul him. Also, if you did listen to this podcast, or you've just seen Ben Simmons' game for the past couple years, we can tell he's a pass-first point guard. The last thing I want to talk about is the series where in Game 4, where Ben Simmons did not play the entire series, he sat out of Game 4 where they'd get swept. For one, people thought this would make a difference, even though that Celtics team would actually go on to make the finals. Now, I think a lot of people honestly thought Ben Simmons was going to play, and I was one of those people because we didn't know how bad the back injury was. Now, Ben Simmons himself did say he thought he'd be able to play and that every single day he was making progress, but then when he would try to play, he couldn't. And as an athlete, I can say the same thing. I've been in situations where I'm like, I can play in this game, I'm going to be ready to go, and then when I'm warming up, I'm like, fuck, I can't do this. I mean, he couldn't even walk. Like, how do you expect him to play in a Game 4 playoff game where a lot of people are watching? Really, there's no win-win in this situation. You either sit out and a lot of people talk shit about you, or B, you play and you re-injure yourself. And obviously, we saw the backlash that Ben Simmons got from not playing, and it was very bad. Now that I've said all of this and I've re-looked into the situation and I've heard the perspective of Ben Simmons, I want to formally apologize to him. Obviously, I know he's not going to see this and I wouldn't expect him to, but I genuinely mean it. I looked at the media and everything they said, I looked at it from my perspective, but yet I didn't hear the perspective of Ben Simmons. Now there's a chance he's lying and he's just trying to save his ass, but honestly, what does he have to gain in lying? And all the claims I've looked at, especially with the jersey and phone situation, it does add up. I also think guys like Shaq should apologize for all the shit that he gave to Ben Simmons. You claimed him as your LSU brother, yet at the first sign you had a chance to throw him underneath the rug, you did just that. You don't just turn your back on your brother at the first chance just to get a little bit of clicks. I know it wasn't exactly the most popular thing to do to defend Ben Simmons in that situation, but guys like Jay Williams actually did reach out to him and had a good conversation with him. But when Ben Simmons asked you for advice, you just decided you were gonna tell everyone, even though it's a DM which is meant to be private. I'm gonna be honest, going forward, and I have started to do this, but I wasn't really doing this when the whole Ben Simmons news broke. I think straight up I'm gonna start taking the side of the players, because it seems like the media and its only intention is to come at the players and say mostly negative things. Before I leave this video, I ask you one question. Name one person in the media that defended Ben Simmons when everyone and their mom came for him, when the whole city of Philadelphia wanted this man dead on sight. Oh, you couldn't think of one? Yeah, nor could I.